The laughter cut through the silence like a blade through paper. Not the laughter of joy, but mockery, sharp, polished, and cruel. "Are we really doing this?" The woman in the navy blazer chuckled, her voice ringing out clear across the courtroom. "You're seriously wasting the court's time with this? What a joke." A few others smirked. One man let out a low, uneasy laugh before quickly glancing at the judge's face. But the judge said nothing. He simply stared down from the bench, lips tight, his gavel resting untouched. In the middle of it all sat Jason Carl, 82 years old, former soldier of the United States Army, Vietnam veteran, widower, and the man now being laughed at. He didn't say a word. He sat stiffly on the bench, dressed in a washed-out green sweater, shoulders hunched beneath the weight of age, memory, and something heavier still, humiliation. His hand clutched the brim of a well-worn cap that rested on his knee. His knuckles were white. His eyes didn't rise, but they didn't close either. They held the kind of stillness that comes from years of holding back, a storm behind locked doors. The lawyer leaned back, shaking her head, flipping a page on the legal pad in front of her. "Honestly, I've seen some audacity before, but this takes the cake." She smiled broadly to the gallery, fishing for validation. No one objected. Jason's lips pressed together. One trembled slightly before he pulled it tight again. Behind him, a row of murmuring spectators, some bored, some puzzled. One man, standing at the back, did not move. He was young, maybe early 40s, with dark hair, clenched fists at his sides. His jaw flexed once, then again. The judge cleared his throat and looked over his glasses at the folder in front of him. No emotion. A clock ticked overhead. Jason blinked once, slow, as the fluorescent light flickered above him. The soft buzzing of the ceiling fixture seemed to rise in the silence between chuckles and shifting papers. He opened his hand slightly and glanced down. Resting on his palm was a chain, faintly tarnished, but sturdy. At the end of it, a pair of old military dog tags, cool against his skin. From the bench, the lawyer rolled her eyes. "Let's be honest here. This is just a confused old man clinging to paperwork that doesn't exist anymore. No signature, no record, no case." Jason said nothing. But in that moment, just faint enough for no one else to hear, a memory stirred. Metal striking metal. A cry in the rain. Boots slipping in mud. A voice. "You go! Save him!" The courtroom didn't hear it, but he did. And so did the man standing silently at the back of the room. If you believe every veteran deserves respect, subscribe, because every view helps this message reach those who need it most. Earlier that day, in the quiet life of Jason Carl, the alarm didn't buzz. It never did. Jason Carl hadn't set it in years. He rose with the light, not the full burst of sunrise, but the pale blue hush that crept in before it. His small apartment was still, save for the faint creak of floorboards beneath his weight. He sat at the edge of the bed, ran a hand down his face, and let it rest there for a while. The framed photo of his wife sat on the bedside table, just as it had for 23 years. He looked at her first, as always. "Morning, Helen," he murmured. His voice had a rasp to it now, the kind that age carves out of men who've lived through too much and spoken too little about it. He dressed slowly, carefully, always the same. Undershirt, clean button-down, sweater. He smoothed it out with both palms. It had faded from green to something between moss and fog. The fabric was thinning at the elbows. Outside the window, pigeons cooed on the fire escape. He reached into a plastic container by the sill and scattered some birdseed out. The sound of fluttering wings filled the morning as he watched them gather. He had names for them. Never told anyone. One with a missing toe he called Sergeant. Another, the gray with the crooked wing, was Doc. The coffee percolated on the ancient stove, spitting little bursts of steam into the chilly air. The apartment still smelled faintly of liniment and old paper. On the kitchen wall hung a calendar from the local Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall, the month square dotted with circles in red ink. Today's was heavier than the rest. He sat at the table, unfolded the letter once more. Creases so sharp they looked like scars. It was from the housing office. Dry legal wording, cold, final. He had owned the house outright since 1983, paid in full. He remembered that day clearer than his own birthday. Now they were saying there was no record, just a claim that someone else had rights. A new deed appeared, conveniently signed in his name. And suddenly, he was no longer the owner, just an occupant pending removal. He didn't have much, but that house, it was Helen's house, the one she picked out after the war, the one she planted roses in front of. And now, someone was laughing about it. He walked with a cane, but not because he couldn't manage without it. He had the limp, always had since '69, but the cane was more for balance when the cold set into the steel pins in his leg. As he left the building, his neighbor, a young man with earbuds in, gave a quick nod and stepped around him on the stairwell. Didn't speak, just kept walking. At the corner store, the cashier glanced at him and sighed audibly. "You forgot your change again yesterday," she said, holding out a few crumpled bills. Jason nodded, pocketed them carefully. "Sorry for the trouble," he said softly. She didn't respond. Outside, a teenager on a bicycle sped past and yelled, "Get out of the way, old-timer!" The breeze from the tires tousled Jason's thin white hair. He kept walking. Half a block later, he passed the American Legion post. The windows dusty, the flag frayed. Inside sat two old men playing cards. One looked up, raised two fingers in greeting. Jason returned the gesture, then paused at the gate. He almost went in. Almost. But he kept walking. The courthouse stood like a stone monolith against the morning sky. He had been there once before, long ago. Jury duty in the 1970s. He remembered thinking it smelled like pencil shavings and floor wax. Now it smelled like tension. The front clerk didn't look up when he entered. "Name?" she asked flatly. "Jason Carl." She typed without looking. Down the hall, "Courtroom C. You're late." Jason looked at the wall clock. He was 5 minutes early. Still, he nodded. "Yes, ma'am." In the hallway, his footsteps echoed off the tile. Each one measured, each one pulling forward the weight of history. The closer he got to the door of Courtroom C, the more silence seemed to build inside him. The silence a man keeps when he's had to carry more than his share of memories. He reached the door, paused, adjusted his sweater, smoothed his hair, touched the chain around his neck, the dog tags still warm against his chest. Then he stepped in. As Jason entered the courtroom, the same woman from the thumbnail, sharp-suited and smirking, looked up, leaned toward her client, and whispered with a laugh that Jason barely caught, "Here comes the relic." And once again, no one stopped her. The courtroom had no warmth, not in its lighting, not in its color, and certainly not in its people. Jason Carl moved slowly toward the defense table, his cane ticking lightly on the linoleum floor. No one rose. No one offered a hand. Not the bailiff, not the clerk, not even the judge, who adjusted his glasses without looking up as Jason took his seat. Across from him sat the woman who had laughed earlier, Miss Penley. Sharp jaw, perfect posture, manicured nails tapping out a silent rhythm on her legal pad. Her confidence didn't fill the room, it pierced it. She smiled without softness, eyes already calculating her opening remarks. The judge cleared his throat. His nameplate read, Honorable C. McDaniel, though the tone in his voice was more procedural than honorable. Court will now hear the matter of Carl versus Kensington Realty Group. Mr. Carl, you are representing yourself. Is that correct? Jason looked up. Yes, sir. Penley snorted quietly. The judge barely flinched. Proceed. Jason stood slowly, placing both hands on the table in front of him for balance. He didn't read from notes. He didn't bring exhibits or binders. I paid for my home in full, he said, voice firm despite the gravel in it. 38 years ago. My wife and I raised a son there. We planted trees. I poured the concrete walkway with my own hands. We never missed a bill. Never borrowed against it. The deed was filed at the county office, which no longer exists. Penley cut in smoothly. Destroyed in the 1994 archive fire. The documents in question were never digitally recorded. What we do have is a deed, filed last year, transferring ownership to our client, signed, notarized, and legally binding. Jason turned toward the judge. That signature is not mine. Penley stood. And yet you can't produce the original. The judge motioned for her to sit. Let him finish. Jason took a breath. That house was mine. I have tax records going back to 1983. I have photos. Neighbors who... Sentimental value isn't ownership, Penley snapped. We all have fond memories. That doesn't make them binding contracts. There was a pause. No one moved. Jason's mouth opened slightly, but then closed. He sat down slowly. From the gallery, someone shifted. A cough broke the silence. Bob, Jason's old friend, pushed himself up from his seat with effort. His hair was silver now, but his back was still straight. He wore a jacket with a small American flag pin on the lapel. Your Honor, he said firmly, I served with this man in Vietnam. I watched him carry another soldier 3 miles through sniper fire with a leg full of shrapnel. He never asked for anything. Never once. Until now. Penley rolled her eyes, leaning toward the judge. Sir, she said with a grin, if we're calling character witnesses, I'm happy to bring in a parade. But unless Mr. Bob here has direct knowledge of the deed's origin, my name is not Mr. Bob, he snapped. It's Sergeant Robert Ellison, United States Army, retired. His voice echoed through the wood-paneled room like a rifle crack, but the judge only sighed and leaned back in his chair. This isn't a character trial, Sergeant. Sit down. Bob returned to his seat without another word. Jason's eyes didn't meet his. Penley rose again, pacing slightly. I'd like to introduce Exhibit C, Your Honor, a notarized document bearing Mr. Carl's alleged signature from June of last year. She placed it gently on the judge's desk. Jason leaned forward, staring at the signature. It was neat, legible, perfect, and completely wrong. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. From inside, he slid out a birthday card, faded, soft at the edges. It was addressed to his late wife in his own handwriting. He held it out. That's my writing. That signature isn't. The judge examined both. He didn't speak. Penley did. Your Honor, let's not delay. My client has legal claim to the property. This is a sad situation, but sentiment doesn't override chain of title. We request an immediate ruling. Jason sat down again, his shoulders heavy. He gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. His lips moved as if trying to form words, but none came. His fingers twitched near his chest, toward the dog tags under his shirt, then stopped. The judge looked up. Mr. Carl, do you have anything further? Jason looked around. Faces. Blank, uncertain, bored. He stood slowly. There's a photo, he said. In that house, in the living room. Me, in uniform, standing on that porch, holding my son. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't plead, but his hands were shaking. And there's a corner in the kitchen where my wife would kneel and pray when we got the news from overseas. That corner's still worn bare. He paused. I don't want anyone's pity. I want what's right. There was silence, until Penley laughed. It was sharp, dismissive. A corner in the kitchen, Your Honor. Are we testifying under wallpaper now? A few chuckles. The judge tapped his gavel, but softly. Then, unexpectedly, she reached into a briefcase and pulled out another file. I'm also submitting this, she said. An official statement by our handwriting analyst confirming the signature is consistent with Mr. Carl's. Jason's breath caught. He hadn't known about this one. From the back row, the younger man who'd watched silently took a step forward. He hadn't spoken. Not yet. But his eyes never left Jason, and the fingers at his side began to twitch, just slightly, as if fighting the urge to act. It reminded him of the jungle. It was alive with sound. Not the chirping of birds or the rustle of leaves in the breeze, but the brutal rhythm of war. It came in bursts, Automatic fire cracking like bones in the air, muffled shouts. The wet slap of mud beneath boots that didn't move fast enough. Jason Carl was 26 years old. His uniform was soaked through, clinging to his frame like a second skin. His helmet sat crooked, chin strap torn loose. His right leg dragged slightly behind him, where a piece of hot metal had torn through muscle 20 minutes earlier. He didn't stop. Slung across his back, limp and groaning, was Private Harold Blake, 19 years old, shot twice in the side, whispering prayers through gritted teeth. "I got you," Jason whispered. "You're not going out here. You hear me? Not in this hell." Rain poured through the canopy above like punishment, stinging their faces, soaking their weapons, turning the dirt trail into sludge. They were 3 miles from the evac zone. That didn't matter. It might as well have been 30. Behind him, voices shouted, "Carl, you're bleeding! Put him down!" That voice. He knew it. Bob. Younger then, stronger, but still just as stubborn. Jason turned just enough to see him. Bob was crouched behind a fallen log, his arm bandaged with a ripped-up poncho, rifle cradled in his lap. His eyes locked with Jason's. "Drop him!" Bob yelled. "We'll circle back. You won't make it like this." Jason's jaw clenched. He adjusted Blake's weight on his back and kept moving. The jungle narrowed, forcing him through brush and vine. Every branch felt like a hand trying to pull them both under. He was losing blood fast. The mud reached his calves. A leech bit into his forearm, and he didn't notice. But he noticed the sound. Not the gunfire. That came and went like a fever, but the steady clang of something against his chest. His tags. They beat softly against his ribs as he moved, rhythmically, like a war drum guiding him forward. Another blast. This one closer. The ground jumped beneath his boots. Blake whimpered. "I don't want to die out here." Jason adjusted his grip. "You won't." A tree up ahead split with a crack. Artillery or lightning, he couldn't tell. The smoke was thick now. Jason's vision swam. Still, he moved. He reached the edge of a clearing, a slope of red clay descending into a ravine where the evac chopper would land. The signal smoke was already rising, and there, at the top of the hill, a body. He dropped to his knees, breath ragged, one hand keeping Blake steady. He crawled forward, heart hammering. It was Captain Reyes, unmoving, eyes wide, dog tags gone. Jason didn't flinch. He reached down. From beneath Reyes's clenched hand, he pulled a small silver locket, mud-smeared but still intact. Inside, a photo, a woman and a child, faded by water, but whole. He paused, looked at the image, then tucked it into Blake's vest pocket. "His family doesn't get to wonder," he muttered. The rotor blades began to thunder. From the other side of the ridge, 2 men waved frantically from the chopper ramp. Jason adjusted his grip, teeth clenched, face pale. Each step down the slope was agony. Pain danced up his spine like fire. He nearly collapsed, but something in him held. The promise, the locket, the tags, the oath he took when he signed up. Not in words, but in conviction. They reached the chopper just as Blake passed out. Medics pulled him aboard. Jason's leg buckled. He collapsed onto the floor of the ramp, breathing hard, sweat and rain indistinguishable. One of the medics looked at him, then at his tags. "Why'd you carry him 3 miles through hell?" he asked. Jason didn't answer right away. He reached under his collar, pulled out his own locket, the one Helen had given him before he left. Inside was her photo, and beside it, tucked deep, the hospital bracelet from when their son was born. He didn't say a word, but he didn't have to. Back in the courtroom, decades later, Jason's fingers twitched beneath the table. He touched the chain still hanging under his shirt. The metal was worn, the engraving faint, but it was still there. He remembered every step of that jungle, every scream, every promise. The courtroom did not smell like mud or smoke, but to Jason, in that moment, it did. Silence lingered like smoke in the courtroom. the kind that wraps around every movement, making each breath feel louder than it should. Jason Carl sat motionless. He hadn't moved since the forged signature was presented. His eyes were on the floor. His thumb gently traced the worn edge of the envelope in his hand, the one that still held Helen's card. Across the room, the lawyer, Penley, shifted her weight, confident in her victory. She smiled to the gallery again, a silent confirmation that this old man's case would dissolve without resistance. The judge adjusted his robe and leaned back. Then, a voice, firm, clear, younger, from the back row. "Your Honor, I'd like to speak." Every head turned. The man who stepped forward was tall, mid-40s, dark blazer over a veteran's memorial shirt. His eyes were dark, quiet, and intent. Jason lifted his head slowly. The man's voice filled the room without raising. "Your Honor, my name is Aaron Collins. I'm a licensed attorney with the State Bar, and I'm here because of him." He nodded toward Jason. Penley stood abruptly. "Excuse me, Your Honor. He is not on record. I was not informed of any—" The judge raised his hand, eyes narrowing. "I'll allow it." Briefly, Penley hissed under her breath and sat down. Aaron approached the bench slowly. "I wasn't listed as counsel. I came today to observe, but I won't stay silent." He turned and faced the courtroom. "I've never met this man, not until last year, but I've known of him my entire life. Because when my father, Airman First Class Jeremy Collins, went down in hostile territory during the Vietnam War, one man carried him on his back for 3 miles under enemy fire." Jason blinked, his shoulders tensed. Aaron's voice softened. "That man was Jason Carl. He saved my father's life, and my father made sure I knew his name." There was no sound in the room, not a cough, not a whisper. Aaron opened the folder in his hand and placed 2 documents on the clerk's table. "I've submitted a signed affidavit from the Department of Veterans Affairs confirming a historical clerical error in Jason Carl's mortgage records during the digitization of county documents in the 1990s. His deed existed. It was simply never scanned." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. Penley stood again. "Objection! He cannot—" "He can," the judge interrupted. "And he just did," Penley faltered. Aaron continued. "I also have a letter, dated and notarized, from the surviving members of the Carl family's previous neighborhood association, verifying Mr. Carl's decades-long residence and payment record." He turned toward Jason now, voice breaking just slightly. "My father passed 3 years ago, but he told me one thing before he died. Never forget the man who brought me home." A soft murmur ran through the room. Penley looked shaken, her fingers suddenly still. From the back row, Bob rose again, his eyes misting. "Told you, brother," he said. "Somebody always remembers." The judge removed his glasses. He didn't speak. He simply looked at Jason. But before he could say a word, a second voice rang out, timid but certain. It was an older woman, seated in the middle row. She stood slowly, gripping her purse. "Excuse me," she said. I think I know him too." She pointed to Jason. "You helped my father get to the Veterans Affairs Hospital when nobody else would. Back in '97. He had no ride, no one. You drove him every Tuesday." Another murmur. A young man near the front pulled out his phone and began filming. Jason sat still. His eyes darted, searching the faces, seeing not strangers, but fragments of a life he hadn't known anyone remembered. Another person stood, then another. An old man in a denim vest, a middle-aged woman in a city badge, a teenager who'd once seen Jason carry bags for his grandmother on a hot July morning. The judge's gavel struck once. Enough. He looked down at the file, then at Penley, then at Jason. "I've heard what I need to hear." He took off his glasses, folded his hands. His voice was steady, but no longer cold. "Mr. Carl, this court owes you more than a decision. It owes you an apology. We all do." The gavel did not strike again. It didn't need to. Judge McDaniel remained still, the silence extending like a breath no one wanted to release. The room had shifted, not in noise but in weight. A tension had lifted. Something heavier, older, had settled in its place. Jason Carl didn't smile. He didn't cry. He sat with his back straight, hands folded in his lap. The dog tags under his shirt felt warm now, almost pulsing with memory. "Mr. Carl," the judge said quietly, "this court recognizes your rightful ownership of the property at 412 Mayfield Street. The forged deed is hereby nullified, and legal title restored to you." Jason blinked once. No one clapped. No one cheered. At least not yet. Then the bailiff moved. He wasn't a young man, but he stood like one who had once been. He stepped around the bench, approached Jason slowly, and stopped 3 feet away. He reached for his belt, removed something folded, a small flag. "I found this on the sidewalk outside the courthouse 2 weeks ago," the bailiff said. "Was going to return it to the VFW post, but I think, maybe, it was waiting for the right hands." He extended it without a word. Jason looked down at the flag. His hand trembled just before he reached out and took it. His fingers closed around the cloth, faded, but clean. His eyes glistened. And then the bailiff did something no one expected. He stood at attention, raised his hand, and saluted. There was no command, no signal, but like ripples in still water, people began to rise. One by one, slowly, reverently. Bob stood first, then Aaron, then the judge. A few in uniform raised their hands to their brows. A woman placed her hand over her heart. A teenager stood with his head bowed, unsure but sincere. In the back, a man removed his cap. The woman who had laughed, Penley, remained seated at first. Her eyes darted. But even she shifted in her chair, suddenly unsure of herself, suddenly aware of something too large for rebuttal. Jason remained seated. Then, with a quiet strength, he placed the folded flag gently on the table, pressed his hand once to the fabric, and stood. He adjusted his sweater. He reached up and took off his old army cap, and he returned the salute. Tears didn't fall in streams. They came gently. A woman in the third row sobbed quietly into her sleeve. A young father whispered something to his son beside him. The room was not loud with emotion. It was heavy with it. Outside, the wind stirred. A soft gust pushed against the old windows, and with it came the faint sound of a bugle. It wasn't real, not quite, but it lived in every memory in that room. Jason lowered his hand. He looked to Aaron. "Thank you," he said, the words nearly lost in the hush. Aaron stepped forward and placed something on the table. The locket, the one Jason had returned decades ago. "My father kept it all his life," Aaron said. "Said the man who found it had a soul made of oak." Jason's lips moved, but no words came. He simply nodded. As the courtroom emptied, people lingered. Some approached, others watched from a respectful distance. No one laughed now. No one dared. Jason folded the flag gently, tucked the locket into his pocket, and with one hand on his cane, began the slow walk to the doors. Each step echoed differently now, not with weight, but with honor. Evening light filtered through the sycamores, casting long shadows across the stone markers. The cemetery was quiet, not silent, but respectfully hushed. Birds stirred in the hedges, and the soft crunch of gravel underfoot marked each careful step. Jason Carl stood alone. The air was cooler now. The summer heat had broken earlier in the day, giving way to a gentle breeze that tugged at his sleeves and rustled the corners of the folded flag in his hand. He made his way to a modest gravestone near the tree line. Not flashy, just a name, 2 dates, and 3 words carved at the bottom. Helen Marie Carl, 1938, 2002, always forward. Jason knelt slowly, one hand steadying himself against the earth. He laid the folded flag across the stone, smoothing it gently. Then, from his pocket, he drew out a slip of paper, the judge's ruling, and placed it beside the flag. He didn't speak at first. The wind answered for him, moving softly through the leaves. Then his voice came, low and steady. "You were right, Helen," he said. "Keep standing tall. Someone'll see." He reached under his collar and brought out the chain. The tags glinted in the fading light. For a long moment he held them there. Then he laid them on the stone. His eyes lingered, not just on the names, but on the memory of laughter once shared in that house, of Helen's rose garden, of the scent of cinnamon on a Sunday morning, of a promise kept. Eventually he picked up the tags again, held them tight, and tucked them back beneath his sweater. As he rose, his knees trembled slightly, but he didn't falter. He stood straight. He took one last look at the stone, then turned and walked back toward the path. His cane tapped softly, but it no longer sounded like the tick of age. It sounded like the beat of someone still marching. The sky above him turned amber, the last warmth of day giving way to night. And in the hush between wind and memory, it was almost possible to hear it. A single bugle note, then silence. If stories like this resonate with your heart, like and subscribe for more untold moments of honor and kindness. Let us know where you are watching from, and if this moment brought back memories you carry with you. The best way to honor their memory is to keep listening. Click on the suggested video now, and we'll walk together through another untold chapter of courage and sacrifice.